It's real. It's relevant. It's life. It's the Power for Living Show with the Empowerment Doctor, Tori L. Anthony.
Good evening, family, and thank you for tuning in to the Power for Living Show with your host, the Empowerment Dr. Tori L. Anthony. I'm excited that you tuned in today as we discuss the topic of coping with special needs. We have two guests here today that will share their story with us of how they were able to cope and how they are coping with children that have special needs. I'd like to welcome to the show this evening Miss Michelle Hill and also Miss Joanne Morris. Welcome to the show. On this evening, we're going to talk to them. A lot of us deal with children that have special needs. I also have with us tonight, will be joining us, is my wife, Verietta Anthony, and we'll discuss some of our story also on this evening as we discuss coping with children with special needs. But first, I'd like to talk to Michelle and Joanne and ask them, first, Michelle, what is your story? What need is it that you deal with your child?
I'm dealing with autism, and Chandler was diagnosed at 5, although I knew at about 2 that there was something wrong. So we started looking into it at the age of 2.
At the age of 2. What took so long for them to diagnose him?
They don't like to generally diagnose with autism until about 5. Make sure they're sure. There's a battery of tests that they take before actually diagnosing them. They send them through therapies. It's just the whole gamut of things that happen.
Thank you. Joanne, what is the special needs that you deal with your child?
My son, Jakeem, has multiple disabilities. He is legally blind with a diagnosis of retinal coloboma. He can see and actually read large print, read some print that I read, but his acuity is low enough for him to be legally blind. He also has cerebral palsy, which is a garbage can term in itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When did you get the diagnosis?
Like Michelle, I noticed something was wrong. At 2 months, I noticed that he wasn't tracking visually as he should be, and I told the doctor something's going on, and so we started going to ophthalmologist, and by the time he was 9 months, he had a diagnosis of retinal coloboma and an underdeveloped optic nerve. The cerebral palsy diagnosis came up when he was 2, and that was, again, me pushing, noticing that his legs were really tight, and that he wasn't walking. He was doing everything else fast, but his walking was delayed.
Okay. Was there any pre-testing prior to birth that either one of you all had that would have let you know that there may be some type of issue or maybe a problem with your child after birth?
Well, I took a battery of tests only because I was considered what was high risk, older. You know, I'm 47 now with the 7-year-old. Mm-hmm. So at the time I was 40. Mm-hmm. So you take those different tests, and I had that amniocentesis. Mm-hmm. They did the chromosome testing, but just right off the bat, there was to be no Chandler. Okay. I was carrying what was a stillborn, so the doctor's report was.
Wow.
And that I needed to carry the baby to term because there were also tumors, that if they removed the baby, then they would, hurt me in the long run. So I had to carry until he actually aborted.
So,
my word.
So are you saying that in the delivery room, you knew that you were going home without a baby?
Up until 6 months, let's put it that way. That was the first time that they heard a heartbeat or anything from Chandler.
Wow.
But up until that point, I thought there was no baby. I'm running around with a stillborn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Joanne?
Wow, you just blew me away.
Yeah, that's why you hear me saying wow.
That's tough.
Yeah.
In my case, everything was considered perfect, except they were a little concerned initially. I lost 20 pounds in the first trimester, picked it back up, so my total weight gain was 0 during my pregnancy.
Wow.
And after he was born, that and everything else came off. But there was no indication during my pregnancy that anything was wrong. And then once he was during the delivery, that's when he was what we call excited to get here. Mm-hmm. He was almost born on 270 and St. Charles Rock Road. So when we got to the hospital, it was 26 minutes and he was born.
Wow.
So there was no room, no time for a prep, the standard, stuff that you do when you go into labor. None of that happened. And so he's kind of built like a football player. He has broad shoulders, and so the broad shoulders were like, okay, wait a minute, we need to stop, because if we don't stop the delivery, we're going to create some problems for you. And so when they pushed him back, the pressure on the umbilical cord caused the oxygen to be cut off to his brain.
Wow.
So it was one of those things, okay, we've got to do something. But even then, at least no one told me that there was a chance that he may have CP.
Wow. Wow. So what has it been like for us dealing with these needs of your child and dealing with your family? Have you found your family to be a support system? Have family walked away? Have family told you that you should have given up? What has that been like?
Well, for me, it's been nothing short of a blessing. I have a mother that takes care of Chandler. He's never been to a daycare, after school care, any of that. And then I have Chelsea, who's 17, who's like his second mama. Or maybe she's the first and I'm the second. So I've had, in that area, I just cannot complain. And I do know that if it weren't for them, I would probably have a different outlook and a different story.
Wow. Joanne, what has it been like with you?
I have a strong family support system. I mean, it's one of those things where faith just kicks in. So regardless to what you made, I mean, I had no other family member who had a child with cerebral palsy or who had a child with a visual impairment. It's like in our family, you get older and these things happen. It's what's just normal progression. And everybody just prayed through the surgeries and through don't let the doctors cut. And I mean, just with concern, but everybody just had faith in God, and that's what really got us through.
Have you ever felt like giving up?
For me, no. I mean, early on, it's what it is. You know, we've been taught in life that things are what they are, and you just do the best that you can to cope and deal with. Like I said, maybe if I didn't have that family support, that would be different. But I've also worked in the field, so, I mean, everything that I need, resources and things are just there. I don't want to say it's an easy walk because it's not, but for me, it's been an easy walk, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I know God, and I know who handles, or leads and guides me, and I've asked him for whatever I need. You're going to have to do this for me. Mm-hmm. So I guess easy is not a good word, but it's been a comfortable thing for me to deal with. Okay. I've been able to do that. The Lord has put his hand of protection around me and my family that makes me just feel safe. I mean, I just don't have, per se, a problem with it. Okay. It's the outside world that you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Joanne, what about you?
I'd have to say for me, it was just the love. It's something about looking at your child from an infant on to me. Now he's 23, and sometimes I look at him and I say, Lord, help me, or help him. But when he was younger, it was just really just that this is my child, and if I don't fight for him, who will? And so I never even, sometimes you can get so you're in it that you don't even think about yourself. Your child is your first priority, and so you never think about giving up, because if you even think about giving up, what happens to your child? Right. So it's not an option.
Right. Listen, I'm going to give the call-in number out, but I have a question for both of you after I give this number out. If you want to call in and ask either of these ladies questions, feel free to do so at 314-880-0808. Again, that's 314-880-0808. Michelle, I want to go back to something that you said. You said for the first 6 months, you thought that you were walking around carrying a stillborn child, and the doctors told you that that's what it was. It wasn't until the 6th month that they, in fact, even heard a heartbeat after you had all. So I take it all the testing had been done prior to this 6th month.
Yes.
You blew my mind when you said that, because it was almost as if God was protecting your child from what could have happened had they detected that something was going to be wrong with him, something that they may have suggested that you abort the child because something was wrong with them. But God, in turn, hid him.
Yes.
God hid him so that the doctors wouldn't be able to tell you that there was something wrong, which in turn preserved his life.
Exactly.
It preserved his life. So that blew my mind. How did that make you feel when you realized that God preserved his life?
And that's what blew my mind, that he did preserve his life. Because the first thing I thought of was, if it's all like this, why can't we just abort it now? Why do I need to go through 9 months of pregnancy or however long it's going to take for him to abort on his own? You literally want me, at that time it was personal. You're trying to tell me you want me to walk around life with a stillborn day to day, listening to the people talk about, oh, congratulations, because people don't know.
Right.
You know, and then all of a sudden, it's like, so 6 months you hear heartbeats, and so what you're trying to say, you're playing? That was the first thing I said. You got to be playing. You know, and from that point on, you know, things were going normal. Now he did come early. You know, he decided he wanted to be a month and a little, you know, early, and then we had him I had him in about 4 to 5 hours.
Wow.
You know, natural, no anything, because by the time it was time to go, it was time to go. No medicine, no any of that. But yeah, that there let me know that God was on my side, and that if he could do that for me, then all I need to do is seek him to guide Chandler. You know, if you did that part, then surely I can try to do the rest of it.
Wow. Joanne, listening to what you said and how old you said your son is at this time, it leads me to believe that you were much younger. And I could say that someone that was your age and dealing with what you dealt with your child would not have stayed around, would have given their child up, would have walked away. What was the driving and the keeping force that made you, because you just said a few minutes ago that it made you fight on and made you fight for your child? It's not a lot of young people that would have fought for their child, because, you know, especially nowadays, young people would say, I'm not going to deal with this. I got to hang out with my homegirls. I got to hit the streets. What made you say, forget the streets, it's my baby?
It was love. It's one of those things. I had a friend who actually had a stillborn. She was pregnant before me, and I had my son when I was 18. And so to see a friend of mine go through losing a child, and I was actually kind of hid my son from her for a minute because she actually lost a son. And so I was blessed. I mean, I was 18, not thinking that it's, you know, I was being grown, but this was my child. And so it was just nothing else for me to do but to take care of my baby. In hindsight, I look at a lot of people that I was around when I was 17, 18 years old, and I look at their lives and I compare them to mine, and I know God just gave tremendous favor for me and my baby, because I know some folks that are in some crazy situations. Some of them not even here anymore. But it was love. That's all I could ever say. It was the love of my child. I looked at this baby, and I just, you know, you just fall in love with them. I mean, and all you want to do is protect them and do the very best that you can, and you just pray and ask God to continue to give you strength. I mean, for me, fighting with doctors, just for him to have surgery, fighting with the educators. I mean, it was a constant battle, and even now he's 23. I'm fighting with him. so it's just a constant battle. But you do what you do for the love of your child.
So let me ask you, because you are a successful real estate agent here in the city of St. Louis, let me ask you, how did you manage? How did you take care of your child properly and still have time for Joanne, and still get an education, and not give up on what Joanne wanted to do, and still made sure that your child had everything that he needed and that you had all the resources? How did you balance that?
I hate to sound redundant, but all I could ever really say was the love of my child. Knowing that I was in corporate America, working in the banking industry, you find that one bank buys another bank. And so I saw people who had worked for Boatman's Bank for 20 years and lost their jobs because another bank acquired them. I saw people get sick and couldn't take off the time that they needed, came back to work early because they had to pay for, just take care of their homes. So my thing was, I need to be self-employed. And coming from a family with entrepreneurs, it was a no-brainer. Okay, you go to school, get your education. I got to go to school on a certain day so I can make sure I can do what I need to do for my son. And if he has to have surgery, I can't go to school during this semester. Everything was done based around what my son needed. So whether I chose to go to school, whether I chose to work a certain job, I had to work certain hours based on me being able to get my son and be home to work with him. And real estate just worked out because I set my own hours. And I always tell people a funny story. My son was 16. We had to go to Kansas City to have a surgery. And we took the train to KC for the surgery. And his doctor had been working with us since he was 4. So we actually had internet connection. I had my laptop. We had a little desk in the room. And so we turned Children's Mercy into an office.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I was receiving faxes from the nurse's station. And I worked that whole week. We were in KC for his surgery and came back home and went straight to work. I mean, that was the blessing of being able to have something that allowed me to have that flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Now, you just said that you went to Kansas City to have the surgery for your son. It's some mothers right here in St. Louis that ain't even willing to sit in Children's Hospital with their children overnight. I commend you for that. Mm-hmm. I commend you. I commend you for that. What really, I really need to know the drive. I hear you keep saying the love of your child, but what was the driving force? What gave you the motivation to say by any means necessary?
You know, we're sitting here and I keep thinking about, because I talk about the love of my son, but you think of God so loved the world.
Mm. Come on now.
And if God so loved the world that he would
Right.
give his son, what is it for me to give my time?
Right.
What is it for me to read? I mean, I didn't know anything about cerebral palsy. I actually had to tell the doctors, because when they first told me, I was like, this is not my child. I'm looking at all the telethons and the visuals that I've seen CP to be, and I had to get a book to read about it and saw a picture of a little boy whose legs were just tight but dangling like my son's. And when I saw that picture, that was my acceptance, that my son has this disability, and let me read and contact everybody I can to do what I have to do. You know, we went to Kansas City because he has what I believe is the best orthopedic surgeon in the country.
Wow.
And so he was in St. Louis before, and I just felt I prayed and asked God to give us the people that we needed to have to make him successful on the medical side and the educational side. And we were very fortunate. So when his surgeon moved to KC, I said, okay, as long as you stay in the United States, we're following you.
Oh, wow.
And so we took the train and we were there, and fortunately the doctor is back in St. Louis, even worked the way that he could see my son since he's an adult. So, I mean, God provides, you know, and when you see him provide one thing, you know he'll provide 15 and 2,500 more.
Right, exactly. Now, Michelle, you said you were older, in fact, 40 years old when you had Chandler. What was the driving force that made you keep going? Because generally when you're getting around 40 and you're ready to live your life for yourself, but not only did you have a child, but you found out you had a child that was a special needs child, that meant it took up more of your time. And I know that you're involved in a lot of community stuff. So how do you manage dealing with your child, dealing with the community stuff, and still doing what Michelle likes to do?
Well, I thank God for my mom and my niece, and I say that all the time. They allow a lot of time for me to do the things that I need to do. Mom will have the baby up until 9, 10. It doesn't matter. They feed him, they clothe him, all of that. But I try to make sure that I'm in his life enough that he knows, you know, we do therapy together. We do things together. When you see one, you see all 4 of us. It's just, you know, when time allows. At work, I mean, if I have to take him to a meeting, he goes to the meeting. I mean, the people need to know that you may see Chandler, you may see Chelsea, and you may see Mama. It's what it is. If I get caught out in the street with all of us, but I'm on the way to an event, they all got to go. And you know, when you see one, you see us all.
Exactly.
You know, and then I just thank God for the opportunity, even with my job. I can just go and come when I need to. There's no questions asked. I just get up if I need to leave, because he has a day therapy now on Thursdays. Every Thursday I got to get up and go to the school, get him, and take him to therapies. It's just what it is. And I ask the Lord, you're going to have to do that for me. I'm too old to be back out here talking about going to somebody's school. I'm too old to be talking about now wanting to start a business, so to say. So at this point, work with me. If you work with me, we can get this done, and just allow me the favor to take care of Chandler. And that's all I ask. And so far I haven't, you know, had a problem. Like I said, it's the world, the outside world, that don't understand, that you deal more with, you know.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What is it like in public for you?
For me, some days it's like roadkill, it's like beat down, it's like, thank God you don't deal with it. It's like, come on over here and let me educate you. I mean, because people don't, and just because they don't understand, they just want to pass judgment, or they look in this, and usually I'll use it as an opportunity. Come on, let me tell you what's going on here. He's doing this because, and then there's some days I don't care what nobody else think. I just let him run all over the place and make all kind of noise.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I asked that question of you because I know with me and my wife, my niece has autism, and one day we were in Walgreens and she had a fit per se. And when I tell you that she cleaned out the whole cosmetic department in Walgreens, and at that time my wife was sitting in the middle of the floor in Walgreens crying, and neither one of us understanding really what was going on. So that's why I asked, what is it like in public? Because I know at sometimes things can flare up.
Yes.
And you have to know how to handle it, and you have to be in the right mind frame, because I know there's been a couple times that people looked the wrong way and I wanted to fight because you don't understand, because
Right.
they don't understand
Exactly.
what you're going through.
Exactly.
They really don't get it. They really don't grasp hold of what you're going through.
And sometimes I care, and sometimes I really just don't care. If I think I can use it as a learning opportunity or a teaching moment for somebody, I'll take the time. But normally it's me and Chandler. If Chandler's on the floor acting, his mama get on the floor and act. I don't care where we are. If we're sitting on the bench and he's in his seat, I'll pull him up and I'm trying to ration with them to see what's wrong. Can we do anything for you? Or if he just feel like screaming, sometimes I might just scream with him. And especially when the people start to look, we'll both just say, ah, and scream at him. You what? I mean, I don't know what you want me to do. He's having a moment. He's entitled. The difference is we as adults, when we don't have issues, we can control our tempers.
Exactly.
We know what to do. He's a child. He don't know. All he knows is I won't, or something's going on that's not working for him. And this is the only way I can get your attention. So if this is how I got to get your attention, this is what we're going to do right now. So I just either join him or I try to take him away. And, some things I know, if it's too much light or too much this, then I know what to do. But there's sometimes I don't know what to do, so I just sit there with him till he's done. What?
What has it been like for you in public, Joanne?
Okay, I have to go back. Initially, my son first started walking, he used a reverse walker. And so that's not something that most kids are used to seeing other children with. I don't think too many adults were used to that type of walker. You typically see an elderly person with that walker. And so I remember when he was going to school at 4 or 5 years old, and the kids called him Four Wheels because naturally he's using this walker, and he would just jump up on the walker, hop up on the back of the walker, and just sit down while the kids were jumping rope and stuff like that. And at one point, it made him not want to go to school. Now, my son's been involved in some type of educational something since he was 3 or 4 months old. We were always doing something. So for him to decide he didn't want to go to school, I knew something was wrong. So for him, it was the fact that he was 4 wheels and the children didn't want to play with him. As a parent, I was mad. I just literally wanted to just go and shake some of those kids and say, play with my son. When you're out in public, sometimes people don't know what to think. Being a young mother, one of the typical things that people come up with is, okay, she must have been on drugs. I had doctors ask me over and over again, even took a drug test to say, no, you can go back as far, pull my hair out if you need to get all the samples that you need for drugs, and you're not going to find it. So that's what they, young girl, she was living a horrible life. This is why it's not a punishment. I don't really know what all God is doing with me with this particular child, but I'm not being punished for this kid. And so when people stare, I had those teachable moments, especially with children, because children are innocent. Right. They just really want to know. But sometimes adults will automatically assume that you did something as a parent that caused your child to have a certain issue.
I'm glad that both of you joined us today to share your stories. Can both of you give us any type of information as far as where some mother that's dealing with cerebral palsy or mother that's dealing with autism can reach out for help?
Well, I get services from a regional advisory council, which is a department of the mental health I don't have the number on me, but I understand I can put it on the website,
yes.
at a later date, and they would just call and get a case manager who would then lead them to the different services.
And so you're in the county, right?
No, I'm in the city.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because we have, my son has been using St. Louis Regional Center.
Yes.
And we actually, at one point, I was working with the Department of Mental Health, and we put together a booklet of resources for various disabilities. St. Louis, the Office of MRDD Resources is a good place to go for city residents. Paraquai provides a lot of services for teens and adults. The best resource I ever had was a social worker at the hospital. At Children's and Cardinal Glennon's, those social workers can tell you all the organizations that are out there that are effective for your particular need.
Okay. Thank you both for joining us. If you like more information on cerebral palsy or autism, you'll be able to go to our website at www.p4lconnection.com. You can also email us at p4lconnection@gmail.com to obtain any information about autism or cerebral palsy that you would like. Again, we thank you for tuning in to the Powerful Living radio show here on WGNU 920 AM. Until next time, we love you and have a blessed week.